and welcome to another episode of the Jola Speaks podcast. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. Just a quick recap of what Jola Speaks is. Jola Speaks is a short 10-ish minute clip in a form of either a podcast or a podcast intended to grow and equip you in your trust walk with God. It is an evolving clip and it is focused currently on our personal processes with God, where we learn how to trust Him totally and submit to His will. I am by no means an expert. I myself am also on a process with God. But you see, each episode that you listen to is inspired by the Holy Spirit. I'm just grateful to be used as a vessel for this particular season and particular work that God has put in my hands. So let's learn together, please. Please share, please spread the word. We are on various podcast platforms. We're also on YouTube, and also we're also on Instagrams, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook as well. So please follow us there so you can get notification of new episodes when they come through. So yesterday we started the topic of consistent work ethic, consistency in work ethic, and we used the story of Joseph to explain, what is consistent work ethic. And I read from Genesis 10:39, where I read two parts of the scripture, where Potiphar and the prison warden had the same testimony about Joseph. Anything they put in his hand, they didn't bother paying any attention to it because God gave Joseph focus on every single thing that he did. And so even when there was even changing seasons, it didn't stop Joseph from showing up the way he ought to show up, even when his season changed. So even in the prison, where most people probably would be a prisoner, especially in his own case where he wasn't even meant to be there, Potiphar's wife lied on him, and so he wasn't meant to be there in the first place. But in most cases, most people will probably, just not want to even do anything because they are hurt, they're angry, they're upset, right? But in that situation, Joseph still showed up with a good work ethic and still stood and did all he needed to do that God gave him success in. So we're going to continue today and discuss the concluding part of this message. I'm going to be reading from Genesis 40 verses 4 to 13 and verses 20. So let me quickly read. And this is a story about the cupbearer and the baker, which was, domestic staff of Pharaoh at that time in Egypt. And just before I continue, so I went to Egypt or Cairo last week, and it's just so amazing to read about this and also actually visit the actual city to even see how powerful the kings were, the whole story of the pyramids and all that. Let me continue so I don't diverge too much. So Genesis 40 verses 4, the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph and he attended to them. After they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream that same night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw them and they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" And just so we will say here that even Joseph was also in prison. So you can imagine focusing on other people to help people and not himself, because in prison it's not fun, right? He left what he was going through and focused to help other people. Let's continue. So it goes verses 8. We both had two dreams. So we both had dreams, they answered, but there is no one to interpret them. Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them in Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." Verses 12. This is what it means. Joseph said to him, "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to when you were a cupbearer." Then I'll scroll down and read verses 20. And it says, Now, the third day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief baker and the chief cupbearer in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And I stopped there. And I read this story because it's also very interesting. It's so interesting to see Joseph's work ethic. So imagine that Joseph was frustrated about being in prison and he didn't want to do anything, right? He was like, you know what, God, I'm very upset. And honestly, rightfully so, because he was in prison, right, for something that he didn't even commit. So obviously, it's be easy to say, God, you know what, you failed me. I'm angry. I'm upset. I'll just stay in this prison and, just be there. But you see, if he had done that and did not use the gift God had given to him, which was interpreting dreams, how would the cupbearer have known that Joseph could interpret dreams? How? A lot of time in those seasons, we are very frustrated. We are like, God, why is this happening to me? Like, seriously, why are you testing me on this way? Like, yes, I can interpret dreams, the gift, they're all good, but why am I here? And we get so frustrated about what's happening. But because a lot of time we don't know what God is testing and what He's teaching us, we go on that route. And in some cases, we don't even want to even help people. We don't even want to even do or use the gifts God has given to us because we're like, you know what, God, why should I use this gift when you can't even help me? And I understand that, yes, in those seasons it can be quite tough. I remember there's a time where I was in a testing season, and I remember some time ago I was in a testing season at work, a very tough time for me, right? And I remember that even the season, right, there's one particular area of my job that people will always come to me, no matter what. And I honestly love doing it. Honestly, it's a part of job that people find very difficult. But for me, it was literally a breeze. Like, I can do it in my sleep to show how easy it is for me. And I honestly used to love helping people and even teaching them how to even do that particular area of the job. But it got to a point whereby I was just so frustrated. I was like, why am I even doing this? I was like done. You know how when you say you feel you're done? I was like, God, why am I doing this? Like each time I come, I help, I teach, I show people and all that how to do these things, and off they go. I was so frustrated, honestly, until the day I realized something, that what God was testing was not my ability to do those things. Because for me, I was like, okay, why am I still doing this thing over and over and over and over again? Literally, I can do it in my sleep. So why am I still here, Lord? And that's when I realized that it wasn't a test of what I can do, or my knowledge, or my skill, or my capacity, or my experience. No. It was a test on building character. Do I show up the same way I will show up in the fruitful season? Or do I not show up? Because like Joseph in this case, right? What if he said, I'm not doing anything again, I'm done? He still had that gift, but what would God have blessed if he did not use those gifts? Because you remember in the story that Joseph, asked them, he showed empathy. You are clearly disheartened. Tell me what the problem is. Let me help you. 1, great skill. 2, the gift God gave to him was to interpret dreams. One of them. And he says, tell me the dream. God gives interpretation. I will help you. Those things will not have been easy. Especially when you are insisting that you literally don't understand what you are doing there. You are wondering, why should I even help them? Nobody's helping me. But what would God have blessed if he just kept quiet and did nothing? Nothing. But thank God I learned. Because once I learned that, once I asked that question, God, what are you teaching me here? And he said to show me what it was about, my whole mind shifted. Totally, because I'm like, you know what, okay, God, I will focus on learning to do this. I'll focus on growing this particular area of my life or my character. And things got better because I knew what it was. Even my own disposition to the season changed because I knew what it was about. So I'll ask you again today, have you asked God a question? Why am I in this season? What are you teaching me in this season? Because it is so important. That clarity that you are so focused on, that clarity that you are trying so hard to get, can be answered by that question. So now you ask yourself, okay, so Lord, why are you building character? Like, I'm a great person, I have a good character. People say, oh, I'm humble, I'm kind, I am loving, I'm caring, I teach all the great things, fantastic, I'm resilient, etc. Fantastic. Those things are tested. So if indeed you are resilient, you will find out in those seasons. If indeed that you are humble, you will find out in those seasons. If indeed you are kind, you will find out in those seasons. And so you will come to realize that what God is testing you is now where you start seeing those gaps. You're like, okay, a test comes whereby God asks you to do something, and you think, oh, why should I do that? It doesn't make any sense. Why should I do that? No, Lord, these people, why am I serving them? Here you are saying you're not proud, but here you are being proud. Humility is such a very interesting topic to actually deal with, because a lot of times no one would ever believe they're not proud. It's hard. Most people say, oh, no, I'm humble. But when the true test comes, are you really humble? Would you really show up no matter what? Are you resilient? Is that resilience really there? Because in the actual shining season, you need all those characters for you to stay in that season. Trust me, God can open doors into new season for you, but the one thing that can keep you there is your character. And so we need to appreciate and be patient as God works and does the work in us, because He do everything for our good, so that as He's molding us in those quiet seasons, in those testing seasons, we are ready with the right character for the actual shining season. When Joseph was in the prison with this cupbearer, he learned a lot about the palace, right? Because he's here seeing Pharaoh's, officials, Pharaoh's domestic staff that would probably know Pharaoh more than anybody would know. And he's learning from them. He's learning how they do things, and even many more people as well. He's learning how to even work with Pharaoh, because Pharaoh put them in the prison now because they were offended. And now he knows that if I work for Pharaoh today, I need to be careful not to offend him, because I'll land in the same prison. He's learning as he's going. He's building that character, so that when he now went to Pharaoh, he went very well equipped. He clearly had the skills, the ability to interpret dreams, the leadership skills. He had everything, because he had the same thing in Potiphar's house. But the character to sustain that season, he needed to build. I'm here to encourage us today. If you're in a testing season, no matter how hard it is, I know it is hard. Let's not let our current situation affect how we show up. Yes, there may be no audience now. Yes, there may not be any, ray of sunshine that you see. But trust that God is doing that work in you to build you for the next season ahead. In many cases, you may not even see why He's even doing it. You may not get it. But trust that God is doing that amazing work in you. That you may or may not find out why. But trust that it is needed and it is required. So please put in your best no matter what. Keep showing up, keep showing out, even without any audience. And I know that God will continue to grant us success, continue to make blessings, and work everything for our good, because we really love Him and are doing everything according to His will. Now, there are also many things that God is also, and working through us in those seasons, but we'll also discuss more as we go. But thank you for listening to me today. I spoke today about consistent work ethic through seasons. I pray that God gives us the grace to do these things, because trust me, it's not humanly possible in many cases, but God can help us. God is so amazing, and He can give us the grace that we need in those times where all we want to do is just to go and yell out of our frustrations, or act in a different way, or not do what God asking us to do because we're frustrated in those seasons. So thank you for listening to me today. Have a wonderful day. If you have any questions, please send any message on any of the social media platforms, so Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Facebook, Twitter, and we will be delighted to hear from you. Have a wonderful day ahead. God bless you. I love you. Bye.